One.
Okay. Hey guys. Hope everybody's doing well. For my part of Adulting 101, we're going to talk about the kitchen and cooking. I just wanted to tell you that I grew up in a family, a big Italian family, and so cooking and food was a big, huge part of my life. It was very, very important. And as time went on, I spent more and more time in the kitchen with my mom, and I learned how to do cooking, and it soon became a passion of mine. And so what I learned about cooking at a very young age and about food at a very young age was that we could easily sit around the table every evening with all 5 kids and my mom and dad, and usually lots of friends also would come, and we would spend the afternoon eating our dinner and talking about how our day went, or just all of the various anything that may have been going on in the world, from current events to just how our friends might be doing, or anybody that might be struggling. And it was always just a great time of community and something I'll always remember. And then as I got older, I recognized how important cooking and food is as we think about ministering to others, and whether or not it's ministering by making sandwiches to feed the poor, or going to a soup kitchen and helping there, or even individually. I learned that food is comfort, and sometimes when we're down and sad, food sometimes helps, and it feeds us, it nourishes us physically, but also spiritually. And it's a good time a good way to sort of help somebody who is in need. So, if somebody is feeling down, making them a batch of cookies and bringing it over and chatting with them to try to make them feel a little better. Or maybe they don't feel well, learning how to make a mean chicken soup is a great thing to learn, so that you can help others to feel better. Chicken soup does actually make you feel better. So I wanted to just kind of give you some ideas today on cooking, and just kind of trying to get you a little familiar. Some of you might feel like that this is pretty basic, but just kind of the basics of the kitchen and cooking. And then maybe we'll do another one if you guys would like for me to teach you how to cook a specific dish or two, and that could be the next one. So anyway, the first thing we're going to talk about a couple of different things. We're going to talk about terms, and then we're going to talk about like meal prep. So just kind of some terms that you might know, or you might need to know. So let me start by saying, first of all, if you ever want to make anything, we all have that phone, right? And we can get on the internet and you can find just about any recipe that you could ever think of. If you just want to make something, it's a great place to start. I have a ton of cookbooks, but quite frankly, lately I use the internet for just about everything now. So look something up, and if there's just something you want to learn how to make, tomato sauce. There's about 600 different ways to make tomato sauce, and you can find lots of options on the internet. So a couple of terms that you'll need to know once you get these recipes. Bake. That's a really simple term, but it's actually a very specific word. And what you do when you bake something generally is you put it in the oven, and generally you use baking on items that are soft in the middle, and you're trying to make it more solid. So think about a cake. It's soft in the middle, and by the time you bake it, it gets a little bit more solid. And so you're usually doing that at a medium heat, like around 325, 350 for a period of time. Then there's the roasting. And I never knew what the difference was between baking and roasting, but roasting actually is when it's at a much higher temperature. So usually like 425, and you'll throw something in for a shorter period of time, 15, 20 minutes. And roasting is an excellent thing to learn to do, because you can roast any vegetable that you want. carrots. You could do broccoli, asparagus. So think of all the great things that are good for you. Those are so, you need to have a vegetable, you don't know what to do. Throw a bunch of baby carrots in a baking pan, throw a little bit of olive oil on there and some salt and pepper, throw it in a high heat oven and roast for, 425 for 15, 20 minutes. Pull it out, maybe throw a little bit of butter on there, and it's like the best. So that's roasting. And then broil. So the thing about baking and roasting is the heat is coming in your oven from the top and the bottom. For broiling, it only comes from the top. And the whole point of broiling is to brown something. So when you put something in and you've got it on broil, then those top elements are what's hot, and they come down and they brown things. So when you broil something, you have to be careful because you'll burn it quickly. So just make sure that if you're broiling something that you keep a close eye on it. And if it's going to be in there for any length of time, make sure you put it on a lower rack. Don't put it real close to the burner because then it'll burn lickety split. The other thing is to pan fry something. So that's going to be on the top of your stove, and you're going to use just a little bit of oil, and you throw things in there, whether it's a thin piece of chicken or a piece of some vegetables or whatever. You just pan fry on like medium and just kind of get things browned and fried up. That's a little bit different than deep frying. And deep frying is when you're going to use a lot of oil and you throw it in there like French fries or whatever. That's usually not incredibly healthy, nor is it easy. So that's not something I would suggest immediately. And then the other thing is simmering. So when something comes to a boil, right, and it's real fast and bubbly, and you want to simmer it for a period of time just to kind of let all of the flavors melt together, you're going to usually you'll put the top on it and you turn it down until there's just a little tiny little baby bubbles, and that's simmering. So let me show you a couple of things, and then I'm going to talk to you about, I'm actually going to show you how to cut some things. So one of the things that my son always tells me is he's concerned, or he feels very unsure about himself when he's cutting. And there's no need to do that. You just need to be careful, but as long as you know what you're doing, you can do it. So this is a chef's knife, and do you see it's very, it's sharp, just very even right here. That's a chef's knife. And that's, what you generally are going to use to cook, to do vegetables and onions, things like that. This is a serrated knife. Do you see how it's got the serrate? And when you use a serrated knife, you're going to use that when things have a thick skin on it. So like a tomato has skin on it, and so it's easier to cut it through with the serrate than it is with this. Or if you want to cut bread or anything like that, a serrated knife is better. Now, those are the types of knives. Now, let me tell you a little bit about cutting. So I'm going to cut an onion, and to me the hardest thing, you always have to make sure that when you cut anything that's round, obviously this was round at one time, right? You want to cut it all the way through. You never want to try to cut anything that's round, because otherwise it's rolling all over the place, right? And then you can't, then you're going to cut yourself. So here's a nice trick. When you cut, sometimes your cutting board can kind of move around a little bit. To be super safe, get an old, or whatever, get a dish towel and put it on under here. Now that makes it nice and stable, and so whenever you cut something, it won't shift as easily. And so when it's not shifting, then that's good. So here's how to cut an onion. So you cut it in half, pretend that goes away, right? Now there's two sides. There's this side here, and then you got this side here. So this is the side that kind of keeps things together. So you want to cut this off. Okay, you're gonna throw that away. Now there's a couple of different ways that you can cut an onion. The first way is it might say to slice, and this could be for anything at all. So this goes for everything. It doesn't have to just be an onion. So to slice, this is what slicing is, right? You're slicing it into slices. And the easiest thing to do when you cut is you wanna use your chef's knife and you wanna hold your hand here and you just wanna put some pressure on it and just push it down. You don't saw it, you just do like that, okay? So that is cutting. Now, another thing that it might ask you to do, or slicing, another thing that it might ask you to do is to chop. So a good way to chop just about anything that looks like this is you just kind of cut the other way. See how I'm cutting the other way? Just like that. You see that? Mm-hmm. And so now you're going to try to, this will help you when you chop to get everything a little more even, your chops a little more even, so you don't have a ton of, so now I've done that. And so see, this is holding it all together right here. So now I've done that. So now I'm holding it. Be careful with your fingers, obviously, and do exactly what I said. Just put the tip here and about 3/4 of the way back. You're just gonna push down. And look at that. You've chopped it. Just like that, see? So it's all kind of the same motion. Now, then it'll say you need to mince it. So that's chopping. This is slicing. This is chopping. Now, if you need to mince it, it needs to be nice and small. So now what you can do is just same thing. Put your hand here and just chop like this. And just do that. Run it through a few times. And mincing means you want it to be nice and small. Usually you're going to mince garlic. That's always a good thing to mince. That's a whole another conversation, which I can show you how to do that another time. But see, now I'm getting it nice and small, so that's mincing. So really don't let cutting anything scare you. It's actually pretty easy thing to do. Okay, so that's that. So one of the things that I want to say to this is about the cutting boards. You should always, from sanitation purposes, have 2 cutting boards when you're cooking, especially if you're doing raw meats. So have one for your veggies and one for your raw meat. And after your meat cooks, don't use this anymore. You need to either get a 3rd one out, or sometimes I still use this if the vegetable one, if it's all cooked, it's okay. You don't want cross-contamination. So you would just use this and be done with it. So I like to use plastic, these plastic or acrylic, or I guess they're plastic, because then you can put them in the dishwasher. So I have some wooden ones, but the wooden ones you can't put in the dishwasher or they'll crack, and so they're not good. They're really more for looks, like I'll put cheese out on them or whatever, but this is much more practical. They're actually less expensive too. So that's what I suggest. Always make sure, and just, you know, what I do is I always use my red one as my vegetables, and my green one is always my meats. And as soon as you're done with it, rinse it off in the sink and throw it directly in your dishwasher. And if you don't have a dishwasher, you just need to scrub it with hot water and soap. Okay, so just that was just a little bit about that. So let's talk about the pans. So there's different kinds of pans that sometimes the recipe that you read will say. So this is a Dutch oven. And this can usually be, you can use it on the stove or in the oven. And you use the Dutch oven when you want to make things like barbecue, or maybe you want to put some, maybe you want to make a chicken. You put that in there, and you can put some vegetables in there, and you throw it in the oven. So that's the Dutch oven. This is a skillet. And a skillet can be big, small, whatever, but it's a skillet. It's also a frying pan. So I have this 101 Asian dishes you want to make before you die. Strongly recommend that. And that'll say a wok, that you need a wok. So you can just use something like this, just bigger. Okay, and then this is just a pot. You know, you use this for boiling water, you know, doing all of the heating soup up, all of that. They come in all different sizes. And this is a cast iron skillet, and something that I use a lot, because when you can also put this in the, you can like sear something on the top of the stove and then throw it in the oven, and the cast iron actually helps the heat, makes it real consistent and easy to cook in. So I love a cast iron skillet. So those are just some things. Now, the other things that I wanted to tell you is you should have you don't have to have a ton of things to stock your kitchen. There's not a whole lot that you need. I mean, I'm kind of showing you the things. These two are not even necessary, the Dutch oven and the cast iron skillet. Although I love them, they're not necessary. You can get away with just a pot and a couple of different sized skillets. You also need to have these three things, are besides a couple of good knives. I love some tongs. Makes life a lot easier when you're trying to flip things. You'll find that you use them for everything. A wooden spoon, because they're not going to hurt any surface. You can do the non-stick surface or whatever. So it's a great thing to have. And a spatula to get all the stuff up as you're cooking. If you get a big one like this, you can also use it as a spoon. So that's some good basics to have. And then you want to always have a little bit of oil on hand. Extra virgin olive oil is a great thing to use, but usually it's what you use when it's when the extra virgin you use the extra virgin olive oil, when it is you're not using it to cook. Usually you're going to use it for raw, like if you're just throwing it in some salad dressing, or maybe you are going to roast. You just put a little bit of olive oil over something. But for real heavy duty cooking, like if you want to pan fry something, vegetable oil or canola oil is also really good, and it's better because you can heat it at a higher temperature than the olive oil, so it's not going to burn, and you can use it at a much higher temperature. So always have a little bit of oil on hand. Always have a little bit of salt and pepper on hand, some sugar, a little bit of flour, and then a couple of spices, and you learn what you like. I know in my life, because I'm Italian, basil, oregano, and parsley you cannot live without, because that's just what everything in the Italian world is. Love thyme or rosemary, those types of things as well. But as you cook, you'll learn what you need there. So then the other thing that I want to talk to you about is just kind of meal prep. So making sure, that you're eating healthy is really, really important, right? We want to learn to love those things that are good for us. And so my suggestion to you is to make it a game. What you want to do is whenever you sit down for a meal, figure out a way to have the most colorful plate you can have. So you want to make sure that you've got more than just white on your plate, which is probably going to be a lot of stuff that's not so great for you. So think about what colors, you know, how can you get some green on your plate? How can you get some orange on your plate? Some yellow on your plate? How can you get various colors on your plate? And when you start doing that, try to get red on your plate. When you start doing that, you will get more and more fruits and vegetables on your plate. And that's what you want to do in the end, because that's going to help you to have healthy eating. It's not that you shouldn't have meats if that's if that's what you like, then that's fine. Just, you know, you just need to make sure you have it in moderation and lots of good veggies or fruits or whatever to go around it. So think about healthy eating and how to make every single plate that you have an extra color on it. And so some ideas for that is, like for breakfast, for example, if you wanted to have an easy scrambled egg, cut up a bunch of spinach and throw it in at the last minute. Honestly, you really can't even taste it, but it's just so much better for you. You get some of that goodness from the spinach. Some other ideas is maybe for lunch, you know, you might want to have a salad, but don't just settle for a Caesar salad, or something with just some carrots. Do something fun. Like you could do a strawberry salad. You could do spinach and strawberries, and you could have a little bit of chicken on there. And then instead of croutons that aren't going to be great for you, throw some nuts on there. And, you know, mix all of that up, you know, with poppy seed dressing, and that's a great lunch to have. And then maybe for dinner, you know, you think about a piece of fish, have a sweet potato with that instead of a white potato. That's nice and orange. And maybe some green beans or some zucchini that you can either do real easily on the stovetop or throw it in the oven and roast it. So just try to think. That's a lot, that gives you lots of color on your plate. So so that is that. Now, one thing that you need to recognize, so is, as you're planning, how I suggest you make sure that you're eating good, is that you plan your week ahead of you and figure out what days you're going to cook and what you're going to cook every single day, what days you're going to have, you're going to eat at home, and what you're going to eat. And of course, right now we're all eating a little bit more at home than we have probably been in the past. And so think about everything from breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and think about how you can use the same vegetables or the same ingredients kind of day after day. Because when it's just a small, you know, if it's just for you or you have a smaller family, you want to make sure you don't throw a bunch away at the end. So make sure you're using the same thing. So for example, in my ideas, you could have your eggs with some spinach, and then you could also use some spinach for a salad. So that's the way you should sort of plan, to try to use the same ingredients throughout the week. And know when you go to the, try to think about the grocery store and think about the perimeter of the grocery store. And the perimeter is where all the non-processed food is for the most part. So you want to go spend the majority of your time in the produce section. Then in the back, you've got some, you know, lean meats that you can choose. And then on the other side, you've got eggs and almond milk or regular milk. You've got, you know, different things like that. Some of that stuff is processed, but it's a little bit better for you. And then in the middle is sort of where all of the processed stuff is. So you can, if you can get away with doing as much as you can on that perimeter, you're going to be a lot healthier. So the last thing that I kind of want to tell you guys is I want to give you a goal. So cooking can be a fun thing to do, and if you're living with your parents, then help out in the kitchen. It will, first of all, you know, be a nice gesture to your parents, but secondly, it's kind of, it gets you used to being in the kitchen, because you're not going to live at home for the rest of your life. You need to learn how to cook, and you need to feel comfortable in the kitchen. And then also, I'm sure your mom and dad would appreciate some additional conversation with you, and doing it over cooking is always a great way to do it. And so what I'm going to suggest to you is I want you to find at least one day this week where you really go in the kitchen, and either one of two things. You could tell your mom and dad that you want to cook for them, if that's something different for you. I know some of you guys probably already do that, but if that's something different, try and cook for them. Or, you know, make sure that you go into the kitchen a couple of times a night and really help your mom and dad. And the interesting part about cooking is learning to help somebody cook. My husband and my son know exactly how to help me to cook, and what they do is they do there's this thing that it's a French term. It's called mise en place, and what that is preparing everything to cook. And so you know how when you watch a cooking channel and they've all got these little bowls everywhere of all of the various ingredients? That's what you can do. So instead of going in and just standing in the kitchen and waiting on your mom to tell you what to do, look at the recipe, figure out what exactly they need, pull out the spices that they need, cut up the onion. That'll get you used to using your knife, and do those things, and you know, pull out the ingredients and prepare them so that when your mother or father goes over to the stove and they start cooking, they can easily pull everything you know that you've prepared and make it a really fast process. So that is my goal to you guys. I hope that you will do it, and I hope that you will find that you love to cook as much as I do, and that you'll use it for the good of not only your family, to nourish them, and for the community of talking to your family, but also to help other people in the community, either your friends and family, to help them, maybe give them a pick-me-up when they're not feeling so great, or maybe helping the community, people you don't know that don't have food, or you know, can't afford, or just are in a bad place and they just need some help. So I hope you guys will take that goal and do it. And like I said, the next time we get together, I'm going to try to teach you guys how to make a specific meal. So let Katie know if there's something in particular you want to learn how to make, and I'll figure out how to make it, and we'll make it together. Thanks, guys.